What's up, everyone, and happy Thursday. Today was a pretty exciting and historic day for the stock market as the spot Bitcoin ETFs finally debuted after a very weird week with the SEC hack and all that crazy stuff, but they're now officially onto the market, and Bitcoin definitely pulled back a little bit. But in today's video, we're definitely going to cover what's going on with Bitcoin right now, the newest inflation report. There's a lot of tensions rising across the Middle East right now that can have some devastating impacts onto the market overall. So there's a huge risk there that we need to cover. On top of that, we have the big American banks set to report earnings tomorrow before market open. And there's even some other big changes in the market that you have to be aware of heading into the next couple of days and weeks. Things are heating up pretty quickly. The stock market is right at all-time highs, and there's a whole lot happening to start off the year. So stick with us all the way to the end. There's a lot to talk about. And with that being said, Tom, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, the overall market today was pretty rough. We actually fell down quite a bit early on in the morning with inflation data, and we will be going over that in a little while. So if you guys are here for the inflation, definitely stick with us. But Mike, what was the big news this morning? I think everybody had their eyes on Bitcoin, and we go over to BTC USD. Early on, it was actually rocketing to the upside, ran up to 49,000, and then ended up falling all the way down to like 45,800 right around that low of day. So it had a pretty wild swing, and we saw a lot of Bitcoin stocks that people have usually been trading, like Coinbase, Mara, Riot, also take tumbles, right? Which is expected because Bitcoin fell down a little bit today as well, but not this drastic. Like Riot was down like 15%, and some of these stocks that came onto the market, like IBIT, they fell, but they weren't down like, 50% or 15% or anything close. They were down more like Bitcoin was, like around 5%. I was glad to see these ETFs starting to move in a good way. I thought maybe there'd be some crazy volatility on like the first couple days, but it seems like it's following Bitcoin pretty well, Mike. And yeah, so far it's been a pretty volatile open for Bitcoin. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be pretty upset that it actually ended up down in the red today, which was kind of a surprise.
No doubt. And something crazy that's worth noting is that Vanguard, which manages around $7 trillion in assets, basically said that they're not going to be allowing the Bitcoin ETFs onto their platform. And Bitcoin surely didn't like this, and it was definitely news that you wouldn't like to see on the debut of some new ETFs, because it's not like Vanguard is some little company by any means. Like I said, they have over $7 trillion of assets under management, and they said that, they're basically not even touching anything to do with, the current spot Bitcoin ETFs, and they don't even plan on making their own either. But either way, looking at Bitcoin in the short term, it definitely has a lot of eyes on it. And what's cool is that it's just like very volatile right now. So like, Tom, if we shift over into like some of the popular miners lately, like Mara, it has been soaring over like the past couple weeks and months. And of course, there was a boatload of opportunity playing that one to the upside. And now it's starting to tank down quicker than most people can even believe. And there's also opportunity in like downside ways with this one as well, whether it is shorting it in the short term or buying it up for the long term. The main thing is that volatility is here, and that's where a lot of the opportunity is, because if you just have stocks that are doing nothing and just bobbing around by up or down like of 0.5% on a day-by-day basis, that makes it like impossible to trade. But when you see these giant momentum-filled days in either direction, that's where you see options that pop up by like 2,000%.
Yeah, you do. And like you said, they fall down quick. It's almost like if you put a hunter into quicksand. But looking at Mara here, it's definitely a rough day overall, down 12%. And Bitcoin itself was only down, from, we'll just say like from US Open around 5%, right? So, to see it down a lot more, like Mike said, will create those good opportunities. And, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, Mike. I know a lot of people might have been holding calls into this event, hoping that it would push Mara, Riot, Coinbase a little bit higher. Guys, just keep in mind, sometimes whenever these events happen like this, there can be pushback. People want to get out of these stocks, and they might want to buy like IBIT or go buy ARKB or one of the new ETFs that came out. These ETFs are going to steal a lot of thunder from those other stocks, in my opinion. We'll have to see how it ends up playing out, but just be careful with those ones in the short term, obviously. I'm going to stick to the ones that follow Bitcoin more directly now, like ARKB. And keep in mind, there's no options on these yet, but they're so volatile in the short term, you can still catch really good moves.
Yeah, and one of the most liquid Bitcoin ETFs from today was IBIT. It had a lot of volume, and I think the cryptocurrency area of the market right now is just a giant game of momentum. So it's like when you see that upwards momentum, you know, there's opportunity like riding that imbalance between buying and selling pressure, and the same thing with the downside. But it's all a giant game of momentum right now, so keep some close eyes on the cryptos over the next couple days. But Tom, we also had a pretty important inflation data report this morning, and it definitely came in a little bit hotter than what most analysts were expecting.
Yeah, it really did. And if we actually go over to the inflation chart, you can see it upticked a little bit. It came in right at 3.4%. And Mike, we've been talking all week long here about the inflation readings and what they might come in at, right? It actually came in hotter. They were expecting 3.2 to 3.1. We did see an expectation of 3.3 earlier in the week, and then they changed it, obviously. But it can even beat that. So it came in at 3.4. The core actually fell a little bit, but that excludes food and energy. And I don't know what's more core, food or energy to us, right? It's so important to the economy. But yeah, that inflation rate is upticking, Mike, and there's a bunch of reasons as of why this is moving the way it is right now.
Yeah, so shelter prices have been on the rise, which is, definitely had an impact on the overall inflation rate. But honestly, the main thing to know right now is, Tom, if we shift back over into the inflation rate chart, we can see that it's at 3.4%, whereas it has been coming down over like the past year or so, but it's still not where the Fed wants it to be. The Federal Reserve would prefer that inflation's around that 2% range, and given that it's at 3.4%, they still have some work to do. Now, here's the problem. While inflation is trending in the right direction in the grand scheme of things, like I said, it has to fall more. And then when you look at the price of crude oil, that is also pretty low. As we all know, gas prices have been, relatively low lately. And the thing is, when energy prices rise, that has a giant impact on the rate of inflation. But here's the thing, though. As we all know, there is a war going on in Ukraine right now with Russia and Ukraine, and then there's also a war going on between Israel and Palestine, and there's tensions rising more and more around the world and in the Middle East. Today, there was some news that came out where Iran basically seized an oil tanker in the Gulf of Oman, and the United States is not very happy about that. So the main thing to know is that tensions are rising, especially in the Middle East, and guess what happens if those tensions increase a bunch? Oil prices can rise, and if oil prices rise, guess what's going to happen then? Inflation will rise, and then that'll create a giant problem for the economy. Now, we are getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because, nothing actually happened yet with this Iran situation, but either way, it's just something to keep in mind over the next couple days, because the more this escalates, the worse it will be for the economy and the market.
Yeah, and they said that the United States would look to retaliate with this if they didn't give it back. So I don't know, it's an ongoing situation. We'll have to see exactly how it ends up playing out, but it's definitely one of those black swan event type of deals that could just end up sparking tensions, right? There was even people contemplating Iran had stuff to do with the other stuff that's been happening in the Middle East. We don't want to get into that too much, but looking at the market in general, Mike, it can create a lot of volatility in the short term. And I think that's going to be very important to look at because, crude oil's down around support. People might be looking to buy it up. I know OPEC might be looking to increase production. So we'll have to see if all of these factors start playing here. That could start to push inflation up even more, which might make the feds go more towards pausing rather than cuts, right? What's interesting today is that even with the inflation rate moving up, the Federal Reserve, the market is actually pricing in more of a cut in March from the Federal Reserve. I thought this would actually start to go more towards a pause in March, but it looks like, Mike, it actually upticked a little bit more towards a cut. So that's going to be a very big thing to watch over the next few weeks, and just keep your eyes on oil in that overall and the overall economy, because obviously there's a lot of things that affect inflation, and I know the holiday spending and everything has inflation pretty high right now as well.
Alrighty. Another thing we have to talk about is that there's a new sheriff in town. As we all know, Apple has historically led the S&P 500, but now Microsoft has taken its place. So Microsoft is the new king of the S&P 500, as it is now the heaviest weighted company in the S&P 500. So there's a new king in town.
Yeah, this is pretty cool to see, Mike. I can't wait to see if they hold it or not. I know Apple's been taking a lot of flack in the short term. They've been dipping, people cite falling iPhone sales and decreased sales in China. So we're going to have to see if Apple can get themselves back. But yeah, for right now, Microsoft is the new sheriff, and it makes sense. You go out to Microsoft on a daily chart and you start to zoom out, and it's actually at all-time highs as of this morning. And even at close, I guess it was the highest close it's ever had too.
And it can join the NVIDIA, constant breaking of highs club, because that made a brand new all-time high today as well. So what a crazy week in the market, from all the price action, but also all of the events and all of the, we'll call quote-unquote hacks with the SEC. And we even have some more important I guess you could say information tomorrow, and that is with the big bank stocks. So basically, we have the big banks set to report tomorrow before market open: JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, BlackRock, and Citigroup as the main ones. Bank earnings are very interesting because they kick off earnings season, and they can also give some pretty good insights into the overall economy.
Yeah, they really can. I know everybody watches banks, right? Because they're so important. It's just, everybody uses them for lending, and it's just so big for the United States monetary system. And we need to see these banks come in good, right? They've been actually doing pretty well. We see JP Morgan, whenever you zoom out on the daily, it's pretty nuts. They're retesting their all-time highs. You go to Bank of America, they're not at all-time highs, but from low to high, that's been a pretty good move this year. If these earnings end up being pretty good, we should see these banks continue on this uptrend. But yeah, obviously if the earnings are bad, it'll probably send them down, because to be real with you, a lot of these banks are kind of overextended right now, 30%, and pretty much with no downside movement at all in JP Morgan is slightly worrying. So I'm curious if they're going to report some good numbers or not, and hopefully they report that lending is staying good, because that's really my big worry with the rate staying high right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And then one last thing, we also have PPI data releasing 1 hour before the market opens tomorrow as well, so just keep that in mind. But Tom, I think we're all clear for the fun stuff today, which are some setups for tomorrow. A stock I'm watching pretty closely is Peloton, and it's to the upside. This stock had a great week last week, and so far this week it has been stuck in the mud. They had a pretty big partnership with TikTok, and assuming this one gets back to that 630 area, I think it can go for a nice run. But at the end of the day with this one, this stock needs that bullish price action. It needs that volume to push it higher, because when it doesn't have that type of price action, it normally just fades lower. So assuming it gets back to that 630 area with some decent momentum, then I will be watching it to the upside.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome play. Peloton's always fun, and hopefully he can get back on that momentum train. Hopefully TikTok helps him out a little bit here in the short term. I know sometimes these stocks, they'll run up with news, then they'll fade back down. And what's interesting is it's actually at the level that it was at right when they announced the partnership. So maybe it'll bounce off that support and go on a nice run here. With my first play, I'm looking at Boeing to the downside. At the end of day today, Boeing started breaking below its low of week, which was pretty sick. It's down below 223 now. If it continues down below 222, and we see good momentum in the morning, I'll be following puts on this one very closely. They've been having a lot of bad news with their planes lately. It's been kind of like a meme fest out there with them. I feel bad almost with how much flack Boeing takes. It must be hard to be an airplane manufacturer, Mike. Thank God I'm not Boeing's CEO right now.
Alrighty, with the next one, we have Tesla, and I am watching this one to the downside. It fell a little bit today, but nothing too crazy. Basically, if Tesla continues this type of price action, I think it can make a continued move lower. And when I say this type of price action, I just mean like the sheer consistency of direction that it had today. Like you could see it, like it wasn't the biggest red day ever, but for most of the day, it was just, controlled by just bearishness, I guess, if that makes sense. Highs kept getting rejected. New lows were constantly made, and the stock just, constantly faded lower. So I would love to see that type of price action tomorrow, and I would love to see a break below 225. If that happens, I would definitely consider trading this one to the downside.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And 225 is a big level on the book map as well. So if we do get a break below there, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of shares stacked up there tomorrow. So if they give out, that could be awesome. And man, the book map's coming in handy here with Tesla. I know it's one of my favorite stocks to look at book map on. Some are more fun than others, right? Depending on volume. But with the volume Tesla has, it is awesome. You can see that nice support here in dark red on the chart. That pretty much is showing that there's going to be a bunch of shares stacked there. So if that level gives out, I think there could be some great movement to the downside. And, we talk about bookmap quite a bit, Mike, and it's like x-ray vision for the stock market. If you guys are interested in Mike's play tomorrow, watch 225. And if you start to see a nice break, consider bookmap a little bit. It's a very nice platform. It lets you see those big levels in the market. And especially for intraday trading, I think it's fantastic. Now, I will say this, for longer term trading, it might be a little bit more iffy, right? But for short term trading, it is awesome. If you're a day trader out there, you got to check out bookmap.
Exactly. And you can just look at the chart right now and see all of the points of major buying and selling pressure, and the stock clearly bounced off those levels. So shout out to bookmap.
Yeah, it's awesome, Mike. And going into my next play, I'm going to go ahead and look at CCJ for tomorrow. I talked about this one earlier in the week, and it actually got a good breakout today above 45.80. Had a great run. It was up 3.34%. Now we go out to the daily chart. It's actually right at its all-time high. In after hours, it's right on it. So if we get a good break tomorrow above $47, maybe $47.10, I'm going to be eyeing up those calls for sure. This stock is flying up even in after hours. It's having a great run. So watch for momentum on CCJ. Mike, it just seems like there's a few stocks right now that just do not care about that all-time high. They just keep going. And, hey, that's the stock market, right? Sometimes they surprise us.
Dude, I love the way CCJ is moving. For all of our longtime viewers, they remember when I made the video on CCJ when it was so much lower than it is right now. Not only did we call this out at the big support bounce at $21 each, and now it's at $47, but we also called it out earlier than that too. So this stock has been on fire over the past couple of years, and it's been a nice runner, I'll say that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I cannot believe how much it's up year over year. But yeah, for tomorrow, with how much it's up, I'll be real, it's not a share play for me right now up here at the highs, right? It's almost like NVIDIA with just how much it's up. But in the short term, there can be some amazing breakout potential here. So just keep it on the radar for tomorrow. Like I said, maybe 47, 47.10 if we get a break. Watch for some calls, and it could have a pretty good run. It was up 3% today as it started breaking.
Alrighty, well, let's get right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. And with the first one, we have BABA to the upside.
BABA, one of the classics, right? If they break above 72.70, go ahead and eye up calls for tomorrow. I actually like the way it consolidated here today.
All right, with the next one, we have Amazon to the downside.
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy move by them today as well. If they end up falling back under 154, which was an intraday support, then go ahead and watch them down to 153 and then even lower.
Alrighty, and with the last one, we have TLT for both directions.
Yeah, TLT. Go ahead and make them break 97. They've been having some pretty wild movement, especially early on this morning. Then it recovered. But if they break above 97, eye up those calls. If they end up falling down under, I would say the low of day from this morning, right around 95.60, then eye up puts.
All right, so we have the downside level for puts, we have the upside level for calls, and that is for TLT. Don't forget about the downside level for Amazon and the upside level for BABA. These trades are only trades if they break the levels Tom listed. But Tom, It is now that time to get into today's big money $990,000 big money trade of the day. And this one is crazy. So we have not had a big money trade like this in a very long time, and it's very interesting. So basically, we are looking at ticker symbol FXI, and this ETF follows a bunch of Chinese stocks. And today we saw someone put 990 grand into the FXI 24 strike call options that expire next week on January 19th of 2024. These call options are far out of the money, and they do not have a lot of time to them. So mathematically speaking, they have a very low probability of expiring in the money. But here's the thing: this weekend there's the election in Taiwan, and maybe the big money trader behind this is looking to play that sort of event. That's one possibility. The other possibility could just be that China stocks are oversold and they're looking to play the bounce back up. But either way, I mean, this is like $1 million trade that expires next week, and that is so far out of the money. So this is super high risk, but at the same time, if the stock blasts higher, there's a lot of reward potential.
Man, Mike, I might sell these calls for next week, Honestly, it almost seems tempting to sell them. But yeah, I could see this maybe being a long position, especially with that event coming up, right? Like you said, it's high risk, but it'll be very high reward if this one ends up popping up the way that it's moving now. And I actually love the support with FXI. If we go out to a weekly chart and we zoom out quite a bit, FXI is down to a pretty big level once again that I've had on the chart for a long time. So as we look at this, it's bouncing up, starting to get that good momentum today. I know a lot of people don't like looking at candlestick patterns. It's almost like a bullish hammer though. So it ended up, closing really high on that candle there, which is good to see. And I think that we could see a pretty good move up over the next few days back to that 2350, 24-ish range, which would be amazing for FXI. So that's awesome, Mike. It's definitely an interesting play. By the way, guys, I am not going to sell those calls. That was a joke. Seriously.
I love how you had to clarify that.
Yeah, for real, because somebody'd be out here selling these naked calls, and I'd feel so bad if they did that.
Oh, gosh. But either way, keep a close eye on FXI over the next couple days. Like I said, this type of big money trade is very rare, just given how soon the expiration is and how far out of the money it is. But at the same time, sometimes those Chinese stocks just really do, interesting things, we'll say. But either way, keep a close eye on this one. But Tom, we're set to end the interesting week out on a interesting note, I guess you could say, as we have big bank earnings. The stock market is right at some all-time highs. We have a lot of big tech stocks very close to all-time highs. Inflation data just came out. There's a lot of tensions rising in the Middle East right now, so it should be a pretty exciting end to the week.
Yeah, it really should. And I'm hoping that for tomorrow, we just see some good, solid price action, right? I know that lately there's been a little bit of choppy movement, but at least this week, and I'll say even last week was pretty good. We started to see a lot of movement back to the downside with SPY, and it started creating a few good opportunities as we started the year. I'm really hoping that we don't just chop around up here. I would love to make new highs of the year again, and then start to maybe break out towards that all-time high. Maybe we'll actually make all-time highs tomorrow. If NVIDIA, Microsoft, and a few of these other big tech stocks keep running like they have been, we might just see it. So I'm going to have 480 on watch. If SPY breaks out, we're going to have to have a celebration or something, because a new all-time high is always fun, especially when the market's been down for almost 2 years, or what is it, 2.5 years now? It's been a long time since we've been at these levels.
Exactly. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to demolish that subscribe button. When you do, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. In every single video, we talk about multi-million-dollar trades, the most important news at the time, earnings, the schedule, great setups, and everything you need to know so you don't have to spend the hours that we do researching the market every single day. And last but not least, I want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Justin, in the, I guess you could say, morning Stocked Up live stream. So huge shout out to you. Thank you so much for all of your activity and great questions. Besides that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and let's end the week on a green note.